that. You know all that, though. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Happy Friday. Looks like everybody's excited and ready to roll here today. Recognize the senator from the 6th for reading of the journal.
Good morning, Mr. President. Happy Friday and happy 34th Legislative Day, Herschel Walker Day. We got a great group of pages here today from all over this great state. Out of Chatsworth, we have Olivia Clendenning and Evelyn Frederick, both from Chatsworth. From Atlanta, we got Robert Gilbert. From Woodstock, Sophia Gerzon. From Talking Rock, Logan Gramling. From Atlanta, Kaylee Grant and Samuel Griffin. From Jasper, Everly Lowe. From Somerville, we have the twins, Dayron and Darian Mark. Out of Dallas, we have Boone Mazer. Out of Atlanta, we have Jacqueline Mejia. From Fairmont, we have Dustin Miner. From Cumming, Siley Rain. From Somerville, Sarah Thomas. And from Jessup, we have Jackson Thomaston. Y'all give these pages a big round of applause. We appreciate you being here today to help us do the people's business here in the Georgia State Senate. Mr. President, the journal has been read and found to be correct.
All right. Thank you, Senator. Is there objection to dispensing of the reading of the journal? Chair hears none. The journal is dispensed with. Is there objection to confirmation of the journal? Hearing none, and the journal is confirmed. All senators who have bills and resolutions introduced, please bring them to the Secretary's desk at this time. First reading and references the Senate bills. Mr. Secretary.
Senate Bill 347 by Senator Hodges III and others, a bill to maintain an act to amend an act implementing
State and local government.
Senate Bill 351 by Senator Walker the 20th, a bill to
State
maintain
and local government.
Senate Resolution 424 by Senator Huffstetler the 52nd and others, a resolution creating the Senate Study Committee on Franchise Fees and Senate Resolution 427 by Senator Kirkpatrick the 32nd and others, a resolution creating the Senate Study Committee on Intoxicating Cannabinoids and Consumable. Senate Resolution 429 by Senator Burns the 23rd and others, a resolution creating the Senate addressing felony Senate Resolution 431 by Senator Harrell the 40th and others, a resolution creating the Senate Impact and Social Media. Senate Resolution 432 by Senator Harrell the 40th and others, a resolution creating the Senate Resolution 437 by Senator Still the 48th, the resolution recognizing the Honorable Gregory Roberts.
Transportation.
Senate Resolution 439 by Senator Hodges III, a resolution honoring the life of the Honorable Sheila M. McNeil and dedicating
Transportation.
Mr. President, that completes the order.
You got anything else? Secretary read reports of standing committees.
Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Education and Youth has had under consideration the following legislation and instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. House Bill 307, do pass by substitute. Senate Resolution 237, do pass by substitute. House Bill 371, do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Heckman of the 4th District, Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Health and Human Services has had under consideration the following legislation and instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. House Bill 154, do pass. House Bill 291, do pass. House Bill 428, do pass by committee substitute. House Bill 471, do pass. House Bill 567, do pass by committee substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Watson of the 1st District, Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Higher Education has had under consideration the following legislation and instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. House Bill 192, do pass. House Bill 322, do pass. House Bill 217, do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Burns of the 23rd District, Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Judiciary has had under consideration the following legislation and instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. House Bill 131, do pass by substitute. House Bill 162, do pass. House Bill 288, do pass by substitute. House Bill 378, do pass. House Bill 447, do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Strickland of 42nd District, Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Public Safety has had under consideration the following legislation and instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. House Bill 77, do pass by substitute. House Bill 238, do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Albers of the 56th District, Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Regulated Industries and Utilities has had under consideration the following legislation instructing me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. House Bill 54, due pass by substitute. House Bill 187, due pass. House Bill 635, due pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Cowsert of the 46th District, Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Rules has had under consideration the following legislation. Instructing me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. Senate Resolution 292, due pass. Senate Resolution 323, due pass by substitute. Senate Resolution 391, due pass by substitute. House Bill 92, due pass by substitute. House Bill 484, due pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Brass of the 6th District, Chairman. Dear Mr. Secretary, pursuant to Senate Rule 2-1.6, I hereby give notice I will introduce a minority report to read along with the majority report of Senate Resolution 292, which was passed by the Committee on Rules on Thursday, March 20th, 2025. Sincerely, Senator Jackson. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on State and Local Governmental Operations has had under consideration the following legislation and instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. Senate Bill 328, due pass. Senate Bill 329, due pass. House Bill 514, due pass. House Bill 587, due pass. House Bill 623, due pass. House Bill 624, due pass. House Bill 539, due pass. House Bill 540, due pass. House Bill 703, due pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Dixon of the 45th District, Chairman. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Secretary will read bills and resolutions for the second time.
Senate Resolution 310 by Senator Kirkpatrick of the 32nd and others. Senate Study Committee on Additional Services and Resources for Transition-Age Youth and Foster Care creates. Senate Resolution 386 by Senator Moore of the 53rd and others. Senate State Fair Tax Study Committee create. House Bill 53 by Representative Bonner of the 73rd and others. Georgia veterans allow certain persons to be buried in Georgia veterans cemeteries. House Bill 85 by Representative Lever of the 123rd and others. Superior Court Judicial Compensation Reform Act and Act. House Bill 94 by Representative Lumsden of the 12th and others. Insurance medically necessary expenses for standard fertility preservation services when a medically necessary treatment for cancer, sickle cell disease, or lupus may directly or indirectly cause an impairment of fertility require coverage. House Bill 108 by Representative Bonner of the 73rd and others, Safeguarding American Veteran Empowerment Act, or SAVE Act and Act. House Bill 113 by Representative McDonald of the 26th and others, State government prohibit the state or its agencies from purchasing goods or certain foreign countries or related entities. House Bill 114 by Representative McDonald, the 26th and others, motor vehicles, federal regulations regarding safe operation of commercial motor vehicles and carriers, update reference date. House Bill 115 by Representative Petrie, the 166 and others, natural resources, Department of, certain notice upon registration of a vessel provide. House Bill 116 by Representative McDonald, the 26th and others, public safety, motor Department of Motor Carrier Compliance Division to Commercial Vehicle Enforcement, change name. House Bill 134 by Representative Camp of the 135th and others, sales and use tax manufactured homes, revise and expand exemption. House Bill 143, Representative Dickey, the 134th and others. Water resources, water measuring devices for farm use of surface and groundwater revised provisions. House Bill 144, Representative Newton of the 127th and others. Income tax, certain medical preceptor rotations, revised tax credit. House Bill 148 by Representative Carson of the 46 and others. Accountants, education, and experience requirements, revised provisions. House Bill 153, Representative Camp of the 135th and others. Sales and use tax maintenance and replacement parts for certain machinery used to mix or transport concrete, extend exemption, sunset date. House Bill 177, Representative Cooper of the 45th and others. Domestic relations, protection for household pets and both family violence and dating violence, protective orders provide. House Bill 185 by Representative Earhart of the 36 and others, professions and businesses to repeal and reenact Chapter 11A, the Dianetics Practice Act. House Bill 196 by Representative Kelly, the 16th and others, state employees' health insurance plans, drugs dispensed for self-administration provisions. House Bill 208 by Representative Smith, the 70th and others, specialty license plates, support state parks and historic sites established. House Bill 216 by Representative Smith, the 138th and others, Richard H. Smith, Georgia CHIPS Advancement and Research and Economic Development Act, enact. House Bill 222 by Representative Blackmon of the 146 and others, criminal procedure, inclusion of certain contact information on bonds and recognizes require. House Bill 232, Representative Silcox of the 53rd and others, Interstate Massage Compact Act and Act. House Bill 233, Representative Townsend of the 179th and others, state symbols, Brunswick stew as the official state stew designate. House Bill 253, Representative Clark of the 100th and others, Ethan's Law and Act. House Bill 254, Representative Buckner of the 137th and others, state government provide placement of Revolutionary War Patriots marker on state capitol grounds and state archives building grounds. House Bill 303, Representative Gilliard, the 162nd and others, Original 33 Memorial Act and Act. House Bill 309, Representative Clifton, the 131st and others, local government require adoption of a resolution or ordinance and voter approval prior to abolishment of a police force that was created by such method. House Bill 325, Representative Martinez of the 111th and others, Domestic Relations Protective Order Registry, revise certain definitions. House Bill 327, Representative Leverett of the 123rd and others, Official Code of Georgia annotated, amend various titles. House Bill 340, Representative Hilton of the 48th and others, Distraction-Free Education Act and Act. House Bill 351, Representative Corbett of the 174th and others, Board of Natural Resources, Modify Powers and Duties. House Bill 384, Representative Seabaugh of the 34th and others, Crimes and Offenses, Uniform Oaths to be sworn by all police officers provide. House Bill 399, by Representative Oliver, the 84th, and others. Property requires certain residential landlords to have in-state staff to manage tenant communications. House Bill 432, Representative Kelly, the 16th, and others. Game and Fish, Georgia turkey stamps provide. House Bill 433, Representative Bollinger, the 23rd, and others. Human Services, Department of authorized to access restricted and sealed information to conduct employee oversight in certain circumstances. Provide. House Bill 443, Representative Petrie, the 166, and others. Game and Fish, fees for reef and migratory fish endorsements. Provide. House Bill 444, Representative Silcox, the 53rd, and others. Holidays, April of each year as Georgia Native Plants Month. Designate. House Bill 445, Representative Martin of the 49th, and others. Ad valorem tax, language required to be included in notices of current assessment. Revised. House Bill 454, Representative Gaines of the 120th, and others. Vince Dooley Battlefields Trust Fund Enact. House Bill 455, Representative Powell of the 33rd, and others. Bingo, properties for use of games, limited number of sessions provisions. House Bill 466 by Representative Cameron of the 1st, and others. State symbols, Marsh Tacky Horse as official Georgia heritage horse breed. Designate. House Bill 45, Representative Yurta of the 152nd, and others. Official Code of Georgia annotated various provisions enacted prior to 2013, which are contingent upon funding and which remain unfunded. Repeal. House Bill 491, Representative Chastain of the 7th, and others. Game and Fish, remove an exception for use of air guns to hunt wildlife. House Bill 513, Representative LaHood of the 175th, and others. Local government criteria for service delivery strategy, revised provisions. House Bill 516, Representative Newt of the 40th, and others. State government authorized county and regional library boards to conduct meetings via teleconference. House Bill 530, Representative Leverett of the 123rd, and others. Courts authorization for electronic filing and pleadings in probate court. Provide. House Bill 535, Representative Smith at the 18th, and others. Penal institutions credit for time served regarding probation revocation sentencing. Provide. House Bill 551, Representative Ridley of the 6th, and others. Motor vehicles, conditions, procedures, and limitations for issuance of temporary operating permits. Provide. House Bill 575, Representative McCollum of the 30th, and others. Transportation Department of authorized notice of certain public hearings by electronic publication. House Bill 579, Representative Reeves of the 99th, and others. Professions and businesses, license to engage in trade provisions. House Bill 647, Representative Donatucci of the 105th, and others. Mulberry City of change corporate limits. House Bill 652, Representative Jones of the 25th, and others. Motor fuel tax, electricity delivered by certain electric vehicle charging stations. Provide exception. House Bill 718, Representative Jones of the 60th, a Women's Golf Week, first week of April each year. Provide. House Resolution 121, Representative Camp of the 135th, and others. John W. Mixon, Georgia Forestry Building, Dry Branch Community. Dedicate. Mr. President, that completes the order.
It is now time for the morning roll call. Are there any motions to excuse? Recognize Senator from the 33rd.
Thank you, Mr. President, and good morning, y'all. I ask for unanimous consent to excuse the senator from the 14th for business outside the Capitol today. And also, he said to tell you, you won't be receiving any news updates today.
All right. Well, tell him I appreciate that. If there's no objection, the senator from the 14th is excused. Any other motions to excuse? Hearing none, Secretary will call the roll. Senators, signify your presence by voting the yea switch. Secretary will unlock the machine. It is now time for our morning devotion. All senators, please take your seats and cease all conversation. I would ask that the doorkeepers secure the chamber at this time. I now recognize the senator from the 10th to lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance and introduce our pastor of the day.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will all rise to the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag, to the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And the Georgia flag? I pledge allegiance to the Georgia flag, and the principles of which it stands, wisdom, justice, moderation. Good morning, colleagues. I am excited to present to some and introduce to others the Reverend Dr. Anton Elwood, who's the senior pastor at St. Philip's AME Church. Now, St. Philip's isn't just an ordinary church. It is the largest in the 6th district, which includes the entire state of Georgia. To my right over here, I have some very distinguished members of the church as well. Sam Tillman, my good friend, and my chief of staff, and certainly Representative Billy Mitchell, who serves on the advisory board in what we will call the deacon's capacity over at St. Philip's AME Church. Dr. Elwood was appointed as the senior pastor of St. Philip's AME Church in Atlanta in June of 2023. Dr. Elwood has shown his focus, dedication, and inspired leadership both spiritually and professionally. And under his leadership, St. Philip's has experienced exponential growth as well as his powerful preaching. Significantly, this New Orleans, Louisiana native, sorry to put that in, Pastor, just had to say that, is prepared for each platform and audience. Dr. Elwood is a graduate of United Theological Seminary in Dayton, Ohio, and a Doctor of Ministry degree, and a graduate of ITC International Denominational Theological Center right here in Atlanta, Georgia, with a Master's of Divinity, Psychology of Religion, Pastoral Care and Counseling, and a graduate of Bethune-Cookman College, Daytona Beach, Florida, with a Bachelor's of Philosophy and Religion. Dr. Elwood was most recently, he served as the pastor of New Mount Zion AME Church in Tallahassee, Florida, where his tenure there lasted well over 15 years. His keynote credits include, and they are significant, by the way, and please allow me just to list a few of them, which would include the Job Corps Youth Empowerment Series in Atlanta, Georgia, Thurgood Marshall Scholarship Fund Leadership Summit in Manhattan, New York, Florida A&M University Commencement Speaker in Tallahassee, Development Research School Baccalaureate Speaker in Tallahassee, Florida Juvenile Transition Center in Boynton Beach, Florida. You can see Dr. Elwood has been a very, very busy pastor. Dr. Elwood is married to his lovely wife, Shawana Alicia Elwood. They are the proud parents of a daughter, Kaylin Elise, and a son, Anton G. Elwood II. I am excited to invite Pastor Elwood to come and share a word with us this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Jones and Mr. President, and certainly to each of you. I want to suggest that every life is valuable, not for what we do, but for who we are. The world is filled with lines of demarcation. The myriad of opinions, affiliations, philosophies, theologies, ideologies, and the major debate that exists between iPhone and Android seem to keep us with adversarial energy. This energy is unfortunately the energy that should be replaced with allied energy. The divisive energy in most rooms in the year of 2025 is palpable. My Christian faith teaches that love should be the order of the day, every day. And that's tough. Sometimes that seems unreachable at times. It is even what I call tough Christianity. It is much easier to walk in our division, to espouse as much hate as possible, and to live in the siloed reality that causes us to be less hopeful concerning a united future. It is my hope that we can find the cords that unite us instead of the strings that divide us. It is my hope that it will not take tragedy for us to inch toward the places where we find value in every human life. May the beat of every human heart be the soundtrack that undergirds the richness that is found in a day and in the turning of another season. Shall we pray? God, we honor you, we thank you, we glorify you for another day's journey. We pray, God, that there will always be value in every human life. May we serve this present age. May we serve humanity. May we always look to you, our creator and our sustainer. Lead and guide us every day of our lives, our thoughts, our mind, our deliberation, and give us the wisdom that is necessary to lead with precision. Because of my Christian faith, I seal this prayer in Jesus' name. Amen.
We have a very special guest today. If I get everybody's attention real quick, have a very special guest from Athens, Georgia. He is serving as our doctor of the day, but I'm going to introduce the senator from the 46th to introduce our doctor of the day, which wants to give us a little update on the project that the senator and I have been working on, that worked on last year for his facility, and he's going to give us a progress report of all our hard work that we did last year in the Senate, and with the help of the senators from the 46th making it happen. So, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's my pleasure today to introduce Dr. Cody Gunn as our doctor of the day. Cody and I have been personal friends for decades, really, in Athens, and he has taken a big interest in the political process. Cody's been a general surgeon since 1988, and he developed a specialty in breast cancer and breast diseases. Ultimately, he ran the program from its inception at Athens Regional, the breast cancer program, from 2002 up until 2022, when he left to go to UCBC, and that's the University Cancer and Blood Center, which is the leading oncology center in Northeast Georgia. He is particularly grateful for our work on the CON reform last year, and I'm going to let him speak to that and let you know sometimes the real effects that we have on people's lives with the bills that we pass here. But he's a fantastic doctor. He has a following, is revered as the breast cancer expert in Northeast Georgia. Everybody, men and women, love him because he gives such empathetic care and is so good at what he does. And so it's my pleasure to welcome to you as our doctor of the day today, Dr. Cody Gunn.
Good morning. It is my very special honor to be able to speak to you this morning. I've come up here several times since Senator Cowser's been in office, maybe 3 or 4 times, and just spent the day with him like a adult field trip, and sat up in the upstairs and just watched the proceedings and just been in awe of how you all work together. We're all in the state so grateful that what you do, and you give up 3 months away from family and your regular job to come in here and work together. I thought football was the ultimate team sport, but I think maybe this might be the ultimate team sport. Last year, particularly in Athens, I work with the cancer group there. We had a PET scanner. A PET scanner scans the entire body with a special material that shows cancer cells that other images do not pick up. We had one PET scanner in Athens at the hospital, and that supplied basically all of Northeast Georgia. And the wait time to have a PET scan was about 4 to 5 weeks. So you can imagine having a diagnosis of cancer and you can't start your treatment until you have a PET scan and we can tell there's not anything else going on someplace else, or we do identify something else that needs to be addressed. So you basically wait a month to get the scan because we only had one scanner. We were trying to get it for several years. The CON was blocking that to some degree. And so last year, thanks to you all and your work, that was pushed through. And we now have a PET scanner at the premier oncology group in Northeast Georgia. We didn't have one, and we couldn't get one. And now the wait is more like 5 days. So I told Senator Cowser last year, it's hard to imagine everything that you do is so important, but this literally saves people's lives to get them into treatment a month sooner. So I cannot tell you how much I appreciate all your work. This is just one thing that you all might know about. I'm sure there are many, many more things, more bills that go through that affect people's lives, but this saved lives. So thank you very much for everything you do. We're very, very grateful. Appreciate being here.
Are there any unanimous consents? All right, before we start points of personal privilege, we're going to stand at ease for a second. Stand at ease for about 15 minutes. Senate will turn to order. Does anyone wish to rise on a point of personal privilege? Senator from the 28th. Floor is yours. As the people, members that are coming in, we are now open for points of personal privilege. Senator from the 15th, would you like to do a point of personal privilege? All right, Senator from the 28th, you're the only one signed up for a point of personal privilege, so just let me know when you're ready, when you folks are ready. You're the only one signed up for it, so I can't believe we got a room full of politicians. Nobody wants to talk. Got open mic hour right now. Rick?
Thank you, Mr. President. While my honorees come on down. While they're coming down, let me just say, introduce to you the Global Sisters Speak Network, who are in the gallery stand, and give them a warm welcome. Thank you. You know, they seek to foster and empower a global circle of women and girls to live abundantly in their authenticity, as well as find success through business and community endeavors. Mrs. Sabrina, right there. Thank you for being here. You know, you have a long list of credentials, and I'm so honored to know you and honored to know that you would come today. So thank you all, ladies. They gave me a couple of minutes, but I will come see you in room what? I'll come down and see you as soon as I vote today. Thank you very much for being here. God bless you all. Do I have my sheriff here? Today is Morris Brown College Day. Thank you. And I stand to recognize my alma mater, Morris Brown College. Yes, I was there, a bubbling brown shoe, okay? And 18 years after the college, after President Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, the ministers of the African Methodist Episcopal Church of the state of Georgia created Morris Brown College after fully realizing the necessity of an institution for the preparation of young men and women for every department of Christian work, as well as an industrial training school for both genders. Morris Brown College of the AME Church was granted a charter from the state of Georgia in May 1885, becoming the first institution in the state solely under African American patronage. The school first opened its doors in October 1885 with Mrs. Mary McCree. There, come on down to just right there, excuse me. Becoming the first institution in the state solely under African American patronage. For more than 130 years, Morris Brown College has received and nurtured students around the world. This institution's deep-seated commitment to the profound purpose, diligence of effort, hard work, perseverance, and belief, and trust in God provides access to opportunities for educational development in a nurturing environment. I'm proud to have been an alum, a graduate, where our president is here, president of our college. Is he downstairs yet? Dr. Kevin James. And we had a resolution passed about a week ago, SR 397, honoring Dr. James and Morris Brown College. Also, our Woman of the Year and our #1 of Morris Brown alum for this year is none other than the Sheriff of DeKalb County, Melanie Maddox. Sheriff Maddox, so proud and honored to know you. And I had said earlier I was a bubbling brown sugar, but you were really the bubbling brown sugar. You still are. So thank you for all that you do for our state. And I see our DeKalb people coming down now so they can stand around you. And our Dr. James is also here. Dr. Kevin James, I was so honored to serve. Amen. I was so honored to serve on the board of directors when we were working to get the accreditation back for Morris Brown, but you got here and you got it for us, so thank you. Let's give him another hand, everyone. I already mentioned that we passed legislation SR 397, Dr. Kevin James, for you. Also, for our Woman of the Year, our Sheriff for DeKalb County, Melanie Maddox, we have SR 395 that's already passed as well. Also, representative of the Alumni Association and our constant companion, Mrs. Walleen Smith, Yeah, she retired from the GBI, everybody. So y'all better act right. Also, Provost and Senior Vice President of Academic Affairs at Morris Brown, Dr. Tonya Cherie Randolph. Vice President of Enrollment and Student Affairs, Dr. James F. Allen. And Enrollment Senior Specialist, Shai Quan B. Randolph. He's our actually an intern here in the Capitol this year. But I want to see Dr. Faroki and I'll sit down then because he was my professor. Stand up, Dr. Faroki, up there. His son is a city council person for Atlanta. Dr. Faroki, I owe you everything. You were not only my professor, and you started being my counselor. And so you've helped so many people over the years. Thank you very much. And one last thing, stand up again, Morris Brown College, and let us give you a warm Senate welcome. Stand up, everyone. I appreciate you. I gotta get out.
Well, Senator, it looks like you woke up all these politicians in here because now all of a sudden looks like we got somebody, everybody wanting to make sure they recognize somebody today. So, Senator from the 38th.
Good morning, colleagues. I rise today to recognize that it is Georgia's Single Parents Day here at the Capitol. This day is meant to recognize the valuable contributions of our single parents from all across Georgia here under the Gold Dome. Our single parents devote immeasurable time, energy, and care to raising their children, ensuring they grow into responsible, productive, and successful adults. It is hard to raise kids as a single parent in today's society. I had some experience with that, so I know all too well and very familiar. So I think it is fitting and proper to honor the outstanding accomplishments of these remarkable individuals for their exemplary contributions and unwavering dedication to raising the next generation of Georgians. Representative Schofield over in the House has recognized this amazing group that is here with former Representative Stovall, but we have also some single parents here in the gallery that are being recognized and they're getting awards today. So I will ask you please join me in recognizing all the single parents. If you can, stand up. I know they're back there. Oh, there we go. All right. Thank y'all so much for being here and all you do. All right. And with that, Mr. President, I yield the well. Thank you.
Recognize the Senator from the 7th.
I rise. Thank you, Mr. President. I rise today to talk about tort reform, Senate Bill 68. When a parent drops their child off at daycare, they should feel secure knowing their little one is safe, not just in the moment, but in the justice system if something goes wrong. When a daughter trusts a nursing home to care for her aging mother, she shouldn't have to wonder if the law will protect her if harm comes. And when a survivor of assault seeks justice, they should not find the courthouse doors locked because politicians decided the rights of corporations mattered more than the rights of people. But that's exactly what Senate Bill 68 does. Tort reform is not a solution. It is a shield for the powerful at the expense of the vulnerable. We've seen this experiment play out in other states, and the results are as clear as they are devastating. Florida passed a version of this, and now families are fighting uphill battles. to hold bad actors accountable while they see their insurance rates skyrocket. We are watching the damage unfold in real time, yet some in this chamber want to bring that disaster here. They'll tell you this is about fixing the insurance industry, that it's about fairness. But let's be clear, this bill doesn't fix anything. It doesn't lower premiums. It doesn't make businesses more responsible. And what it does is to make it harder for Georgians to seek justice when they need it most. And here's what's really backwards, guys. We're being told to pass tort reform to lower insurance rates, while the insurance industry continues to operate without oversight or accountability. Now, after pushing this bill forward, the House is creating a study committee to investigate whether the insurance industry is actually keeping its promises. The fact that such a committee is even necessary should tell you everything you need to know about how flawed this bill is. We're being asked to gut legal protections for Georgia families first and ask questions later. That's not policy making. It's policy making on behalf of insurers. If we're serious about fairness, we should start by getting answers, not by handing out favors. And if you think this concern is partisan, you guys, think again. Donald Trump blasted Florida's approach, calling it, and I quote, the worst insurance scam in the entire country. He said Ron DeSantis is delivering the biggest insurance company bailout to globalist insurance companies in history, while homeowners get pennies on the dollar. So if you're pushing this bill because you think it's pro-consumer or pro-fairness, take a closer look. When Trump and I agree on something, that should give you pause. Imagine your child is harmed at daycare and you find out later that the company running it cuts corners, ignored safety measures, and put profit over protection. Under this bill, your ability to hold them accountable would be drastically limited. Imagine your mother is neglected in a nursing home or your loved one is assaulted by an employee at their workplace. This bill makes it harder to fight back. There's no mystery here. We know what will happen because it happened elsewhere and it's happening right now all over the country, and yet we're being asked to ignore all that evidence to roll the dice with safety and security of Georgia families. I refuse. I refuse to stand by while corporations and insurance companies get yet another gift at the expense of the most vulnerable among us. I refuse to look at parents in the eye and tell them that their child's suffering is just the cost of doing business. So today I ask my colleagues, are you willing to tell those parents that their children's safety is worth less than an insurance company's bottom line? Or are you willing to tell its survivor that the system values profits over their pain? And if you're not, then vote against this bill, vote for Georgia families, and vote for justice. Because if we pass this and we see the same devastation that's happening in Florida, there will be no pretending that we didn't know exactly what we were doing. And there will be no excuse. I yield the well.
Recognize the pro tem.
Good morning, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, colleagues. We've got a special opportunity this morning. I want to speak to someone who's a dear friend of mine and a dear friend of so many of us in this chamber, and pay extra special tribute to an extraordinary leader, a steadfast advocate for our nation's defense, and our dear friend, the late Senator Sheila McNeil. Sheila's unwavering dedication to the United States Navy and the Naval Submarine Base at Kings Bay, of which she lived close by and was so deeply cared for and deeply loved, was more than just service in Senator McNeil's eyes. It really was a lifelong mission even before she came to this chamber. Her tireless effort left an indelible mark on all who had the privilege of working alongside of her, and her legacy, quite frankly, continues to inspire so many of us. To honor her remarkable contributions, our office has established a nonprofit organization in her name, a living testament to her passion for her service and commitment to the next generation of naval leaders. Each year, the organization will proudly sponsor a deserving candidate to the United States Naval Academy, ensuring that Sheila's spirit of leadership, patriotism, and dedication will live on and on and on. We are especially honored today for us to have a friendly, smiling face that is so familiar to us. Sheila's daughter, Leslie, is with us. And Leslie, want to make sure you know that your mother's legacy will live on with all of us, and we are very grateful to have you here this morning. For those of you that wish to support this cause, and I hope that so many of us will, donations can be made to the Sheila McNeil Legacy Scholarship Fund. You can drop those checks off at my office, or I've got an address that I can give you as well. So let us not only remember Sheila's legacy in words, but also honor it through action. By investing in the future of young men and women who will one day serve and protect our nation just as she so dearly cherished and as she so passionately championed. You'll see some additional information on your desk about that. And so with that, let's just give Leslie a nice warm Senate welcome for being with us this morning. Leslie, we love and miss your mom just as we know you do, but her spirit is still with us, and we appreciate you being with us. Mr. President, I yield the well.
Thank you, Senator. Senator from 3rd.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, if you will indulge me for a second, let me tell you a story. The first church that I remember attending, I was probably 4 years old, but it was the Norwich Street Baptist Church in Brunswick, Georgia. A beautiful old red brick building, still there today. But I attended with my mom and dad, my sister, my 2 brothers. The Hodges family sat on the same pew every Sunday. And on the next pew, there was a family named Mobley. The Mobley family sat on the next pew over from the Hodges family. I remember Mr. and Mrs. Mobley. They had an older daughter, or a daughter, named Sheila, and Sheila had, I think, 3 brothers. Sheila was 9 or 10 years older than me, so we didn't really get to know each other. But she had a brother my age, a brother named Ricky. Ricky and I went 12 years of school together, and we became very, very good friends. So one of the stories here is that in that little red brick church in Brunswick, Georgia, on the south end of town, those pews held 2 people who would sit in this chamber. 2 people, Sheila, Mobley, McNeil, and me. But that's not the story. That's not the real story. Let me tell you the real story. The real story is that it was easier for me to get here than it was for Sheila. When Sheila was growing up in the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and beyond, it was hard, very hard for a female to attain station and responsibility in society, and particularly in business. You might not realize that as much today, and you don't realize it because it's easier today. And it's easier for females today because of Sheila and people like Sheila. For that, we all owe her a debt of gratitude. Now, those of you who served with Sheila know what I mean when I speak of Sheila's force of nature and her sense of purpose. Sheila dedicated her life to her family, to her community of Brunswick and Kings Bay, and to the Navy. I don't need to list all of her accomplishments. You know those, and I will remind you that she was the first and only woman to ever run the Navy League. She was the national president of the Navy League. So this scholarship fund is a fitting tribute to Sheila's life work. So I'm proud to participate, and I hope you will too. And let me also mention that working its way through the Senate right now is Senate Resolution 439. And what that will do will be to rename a stretch of Osborne Road in Camden County, Georgia, which will include the new Camden County Subbase Museum, which Sheila dedicated her life to Kings Bay and to the Navy and to that subbase. So, Leslie, let me reiterate that I loved your mother. I love Sheila. I was honored to follow her. I told you before that I had really big little shoes to fill, and I'm trying to do that. So I hope that you'll participate, and thank you for indulging me. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Well fitting for a good lady. And I enjoyed serving with Senator McNeil. She was a fine lady, and appreciate everything she did. We appreciate that too, Senator. Recognize Senator from the 54th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Friends, I just wanted to come to the well because we got some special guests up in the gallery with us today, and in my years of working with kids and youth, I always noticed just the innate hearts of people who just have the desire to really go out of their way to be compassionate, to be caring, to be a surrogate mother or a surrogate father to our kids that are in need in our communities. And today we have the North Georgia Boys and Girls Club folks with us today. If y'all please stand up and let us recognize you. And as we just... These are the folks that literally make a difference in the lives of kids every day. They are literally the most compassionate people and most selfless people you'll ever find in your communities. If you do not know the folks at your Boys and Girls Club, get out and meet them because they literally do God's work each and every day. Thank you, and I'll yield the well, Mr. President.
Does any other senator wish to rise on a point of personal privilege? All right, you have before you a consent calendar, privilege resolutions. Does any senator wish to remove a resolution from the consent calendar? Is there objection to the adoption of the resolution on the consent calendar? Chair hears none, and the resolution on the consent calendars are adopted. Are there any motions to withdraw and commit? All right, you have before you a consent calendar of local bills. Mr. Secretary, are there any objections?
Mr. President, no objections have been filed.
All right. Is there objection to any agreeing to the report committee on state and local governmental operations, which is in favor of the passage of the bill on the local consent calendar? Chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Questions on the passage of the bill on the local consent calendar? All those in favor vote yea. All opposed nay. Secretary, unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 53 and the nays are 0. This bill, having on the local consent calendar, received the constitutional majority. I can't talk today. Constitutional majority is therefore passed. Senator from the 36, that conversation we had has got me all nervous right here from earlier. No. Recognize Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask for unanimous consent that the following bills be engrossed: House Bill 266 and House Bill 426.
Secretary, read the captions.
House Bill 266 by Representative Saines, the 180th, and others, bill to be town and act to amend Article 2, Chapter 7, Title 48 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated related to the imposition rate computation exemptions and credits for state income tax so as to exempt from state income tax income received as personal compensation for full-time duty in the active military service of the United States, provide for related matters, provide for effective date and applicability to repeal conflicting laws, and for other purposes. House Bill 426 by Representative New, the 40th, and others, bill to be entitled and act to amend Chapter 10 and Title 15 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated related to the magistrate courts so as to provide for nonpartisan election of magistrates, to amend Chapter 2, Title 21 of the OCGA related to elections and primaries generally so as to revise provisions related to nonpartisan elections of judges of the probate court and magistrates, to provide for related matters, to provide for an effective date, a contingent effective date, and automatic repeal of to repeal conflicting laws, and for other purposes. Mr. President, that completes the order.
Is there objection? Senator, would you like to speak to it? Senator from 26, you have your light on. You want to like to speak to it?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Mr. President, do we have a fiscal note on 266 as to what it might cost us?
Yes, the author of the bill does have a fiscal note on it. And you're welcome to ask him that question. Recognize the Senator from the 27th. What purpose do you rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Mr. President, is it not true that House Bill 266 has been completely reconstructed to be the exact language of Senate Bill 31 as it passed the Senate, and that I have a fiscal note here for Senate Bill 31 if any member wants to see it?
The Senator knows of what he speaks, and I'm sure all that will be hashed out in debate. All right, we do have objection to the motion to engross. All those in favor of the Majority Leader's motion to engross will vote yea. All opposed, nay. Secretary, unlock the machine. On the motion to engross, the yeas are 32, the nays are 22, and the motion has prevailed. On to the rules calendar. Secretary Reed, House Bill 58.
House Bill 58 by Representative Richardson, the 125th, and others, a bill to entitle an act to amend Chapter 1 of Title 6 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relative to general provisions relative to aviation so as to authorize the adoption of local ordinances, resolutions, regulations, or policies that restrict the flight of unmanned aircraft systems over mass public gatherings, to provide for definitions, to provide for related matters, to repeal conflicting laws, and for other purposes. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Transportation recommends that this bill do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Dolezal, Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Transportation offers the following substitute to House Bill 58, bill to be entitled Act to amend Chapter 1 of Title 6 of the OCGA related to general provisions relative to aviation so as to prohibit certain actions by operators of unmanned aircraft systems, to provide for a penalty, to provide for applicability, to provide for definitions, to provide for related matters, to provide for an effective date, to repeal conflicting laws, and for other purposes. Mr. President, that completes the order.
Recognize Senator from the 6th.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I appreciate everyone's attention. Some important legislation here. That's why all the cameras are here. So appreciate you indulging with me. This bill is a response to a glaring concern regarding operation of unmanned aircraft, also known as drones, flying over certain gatherings of people like sporting events. And under the current law, our law enforcement generally lack a clear path to taking steps to intervene if drones are being flown in these situations. So just the quick meat of the bill, lines 13 through 16, it defines a ticketed entertainment event. Lines 38 through 39 says that these drones cannot fly within 400 feet of the event. And lines 44 through 51 lays out some exceptions. Those exceptions are people that have gotten consent from the owners of the property and those who are operating under FAA authorization and within FAA regulation. Also has exemptions for employees of the event, and then should any utility contractor need it for official business. With that, I'll yield for questions. Sure,
you do have one question, Senator. Senator from the 33rd, would you like to ask a question?
Thank you, Mr. President. Will the Senator yield?
I will yield for my good friend from Mayretta.
Are you referred to as Maverick because of this bill?
No, sir. Maverick flew manned aircraft. This is for unmanned aircraft. But great question.
You have no more questions, Senator.
Thank you. I urge your favorable consideration for HB 58. I yield the will.
Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the measure? Chair hears none. Is there objection to the previous question being ordered? Chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. The question is on the adoption of the committee substitute. Is there objection to the adoption of the committee substitute? Hearing none, the committee substitute is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears none. The report of committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? Chair hears none. The main question is ordered. The question is on the passage of the bill by substitute. All those in favor will vote yea. All opposed, nay. Secretary, unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 53, the nays are 2. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed by substitute. Senator, what's wrong with your neighbors back there, man? Secretary Reed, House Bill 159.
House Bill 159 by Representative Crowell, the 118th, and others. Bills being titled Act to amend Chapter 26, Title 50 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated related to Georgia Housing and Finance Authority, so as to increase the outstanding bond limit, to provide for related matters, to provide for an effective date, to repeal conflicting laws, and for other purposes. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Economic Development and Tourism recommends that this bill do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Beach, the chairman. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Senator the Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we excuse the senator from the 8th for business inside the Capitol.
Without objection, the senator from the 8th is excused. Recognize the senator from the 49th, who also has the former senator from the 49th here today. So we sure are glad to have the current and past senators from the good Hall County today.
Thank you, Mr. President. The former senator came down today with the young man celebrating World Down Syndrome Day. He's out in the hallway sporting a cowboy hat, if y'all see him walking around out there. The only thing that I would see different from what Chairman said previously on the previous bill, I do believe the cameras are here for HB 159, and I appreciate you guys being here today. Colleagues, we know that home ownership is the American dream, but something that we don't realize a lot of times is Georgia has the lowest home ownership rate in the southeastern United States. The Georgia Dream program is a tool that we use to help people move toward that goal of home ownership. This program is funded through mortgage review bonds issued by the Georgia Housing Finance Authority, and then they're bought by private investors. That current limit for those bonds is $3 billion, and what this bill does, it moves that limit up to $6 billion. Currently, we're at $1.8 billion on those outstanding bonds, and that's set to we're set to reach that $3 billion threshold by March of next year. So what we're doing is simply asking to move that up to $6 billion. And give these folks some room to make loans for homeowners in the state of Georgia. With that, Mr. President, I yield the will.
You have no questions.
I'll take questions.
Thank
you, Mr. President.
Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the measure? Chair hears none. Is there objection to the previous question being ordered? Chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there objection to reading to the report of the committee, which is favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? Chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Questions on the passage of the bill. All those in favor vote yea. All opposed nay. Secretary, unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 49 and the nays are 6. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Secretary Reed, House Bill 266.
House Bill 266 by Representative Saines, the 180th, and others. The bills being titled and act to amend Article 2, Chapter 7, Title 48 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated to the imposition, rate, computation, exemptions, and credits for state income tax so as to exempt from state income tax income received as personal compensation for full-time duty in the active military service of the United States, to provide for related matters, to provide for an effective date and applicability, to repeal conflicting laws, and for other purposes. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Finance recommends that this bill do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Hufstetler, Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Finance offers the following substitute to House Bill 266, the bill to be entitled and act to amend Chapter 7 and Title 48 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated related to income taxes so as to exempt from taxation all income received as retirement benefits derived from service in the armed forces of the United States and for other purposes. Mr. President, that completes the order.
Recognize Senator from the 27th.
Thank you, Mr. President, colleagues. We have perfected House Bill 266. And the way that we perfected House Bill 266 is we made it Senate Bill 31. This is word for word Senate Bill 31 as it passed this chamber, 53-1. And, it's not often that we get to do things here that I think so fundamentally change the lives of a very, very important group of people who have served this country. And I want to show you this map. And you can see Georgia on this map is the only dark-colored state in the Southeast. It's only one of 11 dark-colored states in the entire country. And the darker blue color here references states that currently tax military retirement income. So what we will do today is we will take Georgia, hopefully from a darker blue color on this map to a lighter blue color on this map. And we will, for the 95,000 retired military veterans in Georgia, we will give them a tax cut. I hope what this bill also does is turns on an electromagnet for veterans to choose Georgia as a place to retire, because as we know, they are some of the best citizens, and they may now be choosing other states due to the fact that we have this income tax, even though it's a graduated income tax on them. So, colleagues, I thank you for your previous vote on this. This bill has bipartisan support, but I would like to thank the Lieutenant Governor and his office for supporting me in this issue, working on this issue, working this through the process as well, because I know this is something that has been very important to him as well. With that, Mr. President, I'm happy to answer any questions, or I'm happy to yield the well.
Recognize the senator from 31st.
Will the senator yield?
I will.
Is it not true that this bill is upgraded since it came over from the House?
I believe this bill is upgraded, and Chairman, if I would take the liberty, you have been especially supportive of this bill, and I believe you have said that you believe this is, if not the best bill of the session, it certainly is one of them, and I appreciate your help on this.
I agree, and I thank you for your leadership on behalf of all our veterans in Georgia to get this done, and look forward to seeing green on the board in a second.
Thank you, Chairman.
Senator from the 26th, do you have a question, or you just want to come up to? Okay. You have no more questions, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the well.
Recognize the senator from the 26th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, I hate to oppose my warm, close, and trusted friend, but this bill is going to cost us $40 million a year. That's $40 million that you will not be able to touch or appropriate. In the past, I've gone along with it, but what's happening in Washington, D.C., and the things that are being cut, my personal opinion is that we are going to have to pick up some of that cost. and not be able to get those federal dollars. So I just wanted to just make that note. It'll cost us $40 million a year. Thank you. I yield the way.
Recognize Senator from 36.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Yu.
Yes.
Thank you for your comments from the well on HB 266. And recognizing there are other authorities in the building, but I want to ask you, should this bill have a fiscal note?
They have one. I just saw it.
You saw it, but it's not in our books, is it?
Yeah, the gentleman has a fiscal note. And that's the reason I say it's going to cost us $40 million. So if you got projects and stuff, that's $40 million you're not going to be able to touch because of this bill. It's dealing with veterans, people who have given their lives and put their lives on the line for this country. I understand that. And I'm for the veterans. I never served. But with everything going on in Washington, the dismantling of the Department of Education, Social Security office is closing in Georgia. How you close the Social Security office in Columbus, Georgia, with all those folks around there? These are the kind of things that we're going to have to look at, because when they do that, then we as a state have the obligation to try to take care of our folks in this state. And I just wanted to make that note. I'm not against the veterans. I think they've done a marvelous job and have gone and served us well. But it's $40 million that you won't see and you won't appropriate under this bill.
And further true,
Yes.
isn't it true that with the bill that passed yesterday, HB 111, that reduces state revenues by $800 and some million dollars, and didn't you add this money that you're talking about? Another, did you say it's 30 million or 40 million? That would add that to it, and we're building up we're pulling a lot of money out of our state revenue stream. Isn't it true?
That is very true. But again, I say we all have different opinions of how we do things and the people we serve. And again, I say that the military men and women who take an oath to serve this country and give their all. But again, I just want to tell you, it's $40 million. So if you got a project in your hometown and you're trying to get money out of the appropriations process, 40 million of it's gone. And so I just want you to know, when you do these things, they have consequences. They have real consequences. You know, I'm a poor boy. A dollar means something to me. But when you start talking about 40 million, I can't even count it. I can't count $40 million in my account or nowhere else. And I just want you to know that when you do it, it does have consequences, because when you look at the overall budget and we don't know what else is coming down the pipe in Washington, it means that when we lose that money there, we got to make up the difference. Are there any more questions? Mr. President, I yield the will.
Would any other senator wish to speak for or against the bill? Hearing none. Senator from 27th, you'd like to close debate?
Thank you, Mr. President. My friend from the 26th has been consistent on this, and so I do appreciate that. He was the one senator who voted against this the last time it was before the chamber. I would offer the fiscal note to anyone who would like to see it. As all fiscal notes do, it has a high end and a low end range, and that range for next fiscal year, the full fiscal year where this would be in effect is from 23 to 58 million, so his number of 40 million is correct. I would only point out to you that we collect about $16 billion in the income tax, and so we are giving a 0.25% cut to only income tax revenue, which is less than half of the revenue that we appropriate in the budget. So this is about 0.1% of the funding that we appropriate. And we have actually been in the budgeting process in Green Door and the last day or so, and we can find $40 million for these veterans. And I am thankful this has been a bipartisan issue so far. I've been thankful this has been a Senate issue so far, and that the Senate has led and taken a stand and said that we've passed this bill very early in the session. One of the very first things that we wanted to do was to prioritize this small tax cut for our veterans. And with that, Mr. President, I ask for your favorable consideration, members of this chamber, and I yield the well.
Senator has yielded. Senator from 36.
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your problem.
My question is, are fiscal notes supposed to appear in with the bill when it's being considered on the floor?
Senator, that's going to be a question for the author of the bill. We don't have them up here at the rostrum. That's.
So the rules require a fiscal note to be attached to a bill if there is said fiscal note.
I don't believe that. I don't believe the rules require him have them on the floor, Senator. But I assume during the process in the committee and everything that those questions were asked and they were answered. That's all I can help you with here.
So does our Secretary of State have is our Secretary of State instructed to provide the fiscal note if one exists with the bill when it's on the floor?
We don't have one for this LC, Senator.
I'm sorry.
We don't have one for this LC. We don't. This is a House bill.
I understand.
So I have no idea what the Secretary of State does on that one.
Thank you. Secretary, we meant Secretary of the Senate. Correction.
Senator from the 36, that your point was noted, Senator, and we'll get it provided to you. But your point is noted. There is the question is on the adoption of the committee substitute. Is there objections to the adoption of the committee substitute? Hearing none, the committee substitute is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which is favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears none. Report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? Chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Question is on the passage of the bill by substitute. All those in favor will vote yea. All opposed, nay. Secretary, unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 53, the nays are 2. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed by substitute. Secretary Reed, House Bill 331.
House Bill 331 by Representative Camp of the 135th and others. Bills being titled and act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 11, Title 4 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated will do general provisions regarding animal protection as to prohibit the transfer of certain domestic animals to certain locations, to provide for exceptions, to provide for enforcement, to provide for penalties, to provide for definitions, to provide for related matters, to repeal conflicting laws, and for other purposes. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Agriculture and Consumer Affairs recommends that this bill do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Goodman, Chairman. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Recognize Senator from the 24th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senators, I say, I bring you House Bill 331, a very important bill, a very simple bill. This is a bill to be able to protect some very special animals. In our homes, our children, we love them the most. But then we have our dogs and our cats and our rabbits. This is a bill to where all animals will be protected and be taken care of the right way. This gets rid of all the bad actors. Took too many animals, took them in. They have not been able to maintain them, take care of them, and then they're trying to sell them on a false pretense. Ladies and gentlemen, we need this bill so we can make sure all our pets are taken care of. And also, it protects the companies that already do it the right way. Also, I would like and encourage each one to vote green so that our president, our First Lady in the Senate will be very proud of us. And that way, our president and many of us here will not be in the doghouse tonight. Thank you. I ask you to vote green.
Yeah, you got a couple questions. Senator's yielded. Senator's yielded. I'll tell you what, it's important. It's important for me getting home tonight. I can tell you that right now. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the measure? Chair hears none. Previous question is ordered. Is there objection to agree to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? Chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Questions on the passage of the bill. All those in favor of the bill vote yea. Opposed, nay. Secretary, unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 53, the nays are 1. This bill, having received requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. All right, I appreciate that, Senator. Appreciate that very much. Appreciate it. And Senator from the 53rd.
Point of order, Mr. President.
State your inquiry.
Isn't it true that the best coonhound I ever bought was in a McDonald's parking lot?
You know, Senator, I was just sitting here thinking, when you're already in the doghouse, I don't know where else to put one dog, you know. So, but I'm sure that coon dog you had was a good dog. So, all right. Moving on, House Bill 426. Secretary, read the caption.
House Bill 426 by Representative New, the 40th, and others, the bill to be intended and act to amend Chapter 10, Title 15 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to magistrate courts as to provide for nonpartisan election of magistrates, to amend Chapter 2 of Title 21 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to elections and primaries generally, so as to revise provisions relating to nonpartisan elections of judges of the probate court and magistrates, to provide for related matters, to provide for an effective date, a contingent effective date, and automatic repeal, to repeal conflicting laws, and for other purposes. Mr. President, the Standing Committee on Ethics recommends that this bill do pass with respect minutes. Senator Williams, Vice Chairman. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Senator from the 25th.
Thank you, Mr. President. After all that time on dogs and cats and rabbits, I won't take much of your time. This is a little simple bill that just changed the magistrates in Georgia to nonpartisan. So Friday afternoon, I don't want to stand in the way of everybody getting home. I ask for your favorable consideration. I'll yield the well.
Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the measure? Chair hears none. Is there objection to the previous question being ordered? Chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there objection to agreeing to the Porter Committee, which is favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears none. The Porter Committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? Chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Questions on the passage of the bill. All those in favor vote yea. All opposed nay. Secretary, unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 43 and the nays are 11. This bill, having received requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Recognize Senator from the 18th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate agree to the House substitute to SB 68.
Secretary, read the caption.
Senate Bill 68 by Senator Kennedy of the 18th and others, bill to maintain an act to amend Titles 9, 13, 40, and 51 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to civil practice, contracts, motor vehicles, and torts, respectively, so as to provide for substantive and comprehensive revision of provisions regarding civil practice, evidentiary matters, damages, and liability in tort actions, to provide for limitations relative to pain and suffering testimony, to provide for timing of answers and discovery, to provide for dismissals of civil actions, to provide for definitions, to provide for related matters, to provide for an effective date and applicability, to repeal conflicting laws, and for other purposes. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Senator from the 44th.
Parliamentary, I rise to make a motion.
State your inquiry.
I move that the Senate agree to the House substitute to SB 68 as amended by Amendment 1.
Secretary, read amendment number 1.
Mr. President, Senator Parent of the 44th and others offer the following amendment number 1 to amend the House substitute to Senate Bill 68 by replacing substantially similar wrongful conduct with similar wrongful conduct on lines 199, 229, 231, 234, and 238 by deleting physical on lines 206, 242, 247, 261, and 266 by deleting substantially on lines 207, 244, and 263 by inserting after line 281 the following. D. Nothing in this article shall be construed to limit or otherwise affect any claim, remedy, or cause of action where the wrongful conduct is related to a violation of any of the sexual offenses set forth in Chapter 6 of Title 16, or any claim, remedy, or cause of action where the wrongful conduct injures a person who, at the time of the injury, was less than 18 years old or was 65 years old or older. Mr. President, that completes the order.
Senator, would you like to speak to your motion?
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I am opposed to SB 68, certainly in its current form, but I rise to posit to this body that we could procedurally agree as amended, which would allow us to consider or allow Amendment 1 to go forward and then would give some justice for some victims that right now are having the courthouse door closed in their faces, and they've been down here every day with their horrible stories of abuse. And I think that this body should listen to those stories of abuse. Imagine the horror of learning that a child you love has suffered unimaginable abuse. Abuse that will, at a minimum, shape and may even destroy the rest of that child's life. Now imagine being told that you don't have the right to seek justice, not because the case isn't valid, but because lawmakers have decided that protecting corporations and insurance companies is more important than protecting victims. And that's exactly what will happen if these so-called lawsuit reforms pass. These so-called reforms are not about stopping frivolous lawsuits. They are about, and they will, shield negligent institutions from accountability at the expense of children and victims of violent crime. All the cases I'm about to reference are cases from right here in Georgia. Consider the case of a 7-year-old boy repeatedly molested at summer camp because the staff ignored their own safety rules. Too much trouble to enforce. He now suffers from PTSD and has suicidal thoughts. Or a 5-year-old girl who was raped with a pencil at camp because the staff failed to supervise the children in their care as put out by the camp's own policies. She now lives with nightmares and deep emotional scars. And then there is the horrifying case of an extended stay hotel that allowed a nightmare to unfold inside its walls. A man held his children and a vulnerable teenage girl captive for years. 3 of the children were conceived and born inside of this single hotel room without any medical care. Over 15 months, a year and 3 months, these children and the young woman were starved and tortured. A 15-month-old baby weighing only 7.5 pounds, the size of a small newborn, died of starvation. And at that point, authorities were called. The baby was dead. Her tiny body bore the signs of prolonged abuse, a broken arm, and 42 fractured ribs. The other children were critically malnourished. The woman, the mother, the captive mother, weighed only 59 pounds and was in a catatonic state for months. And all of this happened because the hotel failed to follow its own very basic policies. Under their policies, they were supposed to check on guests weekly, make sure that each room was entered on a weekly basis. And they didn't. They didn't do it for 15 months. And there were people imprisoned inside the hotel room for 15 months. A 15-month-old baby weighing 7 pounds with 42 fractured ribs. An enslaved woman, 59 pounds, who had given birth in this hotel room. I would suggest to you, colleagues, that the reason the policy exists for the extended stay hotel is to make sure things like that are not happening. But they were, and this hotel did not follow its own policies, which led to the starvation and malnourishment of 3 kids, the death of another, and the enslavement and malnourishment of a young woman. Even after the police came looking for one of the abusers of this family, they allowed the abuser to switch rooms and re-register under a fake name, enabling the abuse to continue after the police had shown up. After the police had shown up. If these lawsuit reforms pass, the victims in these cases may never get their day in court. And it's worse than that for our society. It's not just about the victims of these horrific crimes. It's actually about our whole society and what safety measures we should be able to expect out of businesses that invite the public onto their property. If these organizations can fail the public in this way, whether it's a summer camp or a hotel, and face no consequences, that means no justice for these victims, no accountability for those who allowed their suffering, and worst of all, no change to prevent future tragedies. Who benefits, I ask? Who benefits from these reforms? Not the children who have been raped and abused, not the families who are mourning their loved ones. The only winners are insurance companies and other corporations that are more concerned about their bottom line than making sure that their policies protect human lives. Because you see, lawsuits are not just about compensation. They're about exposing negligence, forcing institutions to change, and preventing more victims. Everyone in this room should know that the way the American judicial system has grown up since the founding of this country has had lawsuits play a critical role in providing safety, basic safety tenets to every person in the United States of America. They basically play a regulatory role. And if you get rid of them, then that will mean that businesses aren't incentivized to spend that money. Because I'm not trying to say businesses are evil. They're not. But it's about showing through a lawsuit the harms that are caused if you say, you know what, we're not going to follow that policy. We're not going to have that security guard. We're not going to install that lighting. We're not going to have that fence fixed, or delaying on all of it. You think code enforcement is going to be able to come around? Check all the lights? No. And we've never expected them to, and therein lies the problem with changing premises liability. You may want to call it negligent security in this wide open way without grappling with the fact that these lawsuits have made every single one of us and all of our families more safe. Or maybe even having a basic safety. Basic safety. The number of lawyers in favor of this bill that have said how poorly written, vague, and overly broad the section of the bill about premises liability is shocking. But what's more shocking is that there were no changes made to that section. Other changes were made that kind of affect lawyer compensation, how expensive is it to bring a case. This piece that impacts every single person on the shores of the United States of America, whether they're a citizen or a visitor, and every single business, did not get the scrutiny it deserved. But you know what? Everyone who's been filling this Capitol, this is the part they're here on. They're not here to talk about phantom damages. They're here to talk about the crime they suffered, being kidnapped, raped, the child sexual abuse. That's what they've been talking about for weeks. And the only change was to carve out sex trafficking victims. Well, good. Glad that happened. But it also puts the lie to the entire rest of the section, because it also says, all right, if you were sex trafficked, you can have your day in court. But if you were kidnapped and raped and held for 15 months, then nope, no luck for you. So let that sink in. Being stabbed, no big deal. Raped, totally fine. Murdered, oh, that's a shame. You got to face all these additional barriers. Sex trafficked, all right. You we want to take care of. Can you imagine how crazy that sounds? When we take away the right to sue, we're not protecting our communities. We are enabling abuse and bad actors who would rather pad profits than protect people. And like I said, they may not even do it intentionally. It may seem like a wise business decision until it's too late and you've got an enslaved family and a dead baby. We have to ask ourselves, who do we, the people's representatives, stand with? The insurance companies that, even as I speak, are being investigated in Florida for crying poor to get tort reform passed while hiding, as alleged, billions of dollars in profits? Or the children and families who have suffered unimaginable horrors? The answer should be clear. We're here on behalf of the people. We need balance. I'm not against lawsuit reform, But the failure to grapple with the changes that are allowed in this bill, shutting out all victims of crime, no matter how heinous, unless it's sex trafficking, even while an insurance scandal is unfolding in Florida, where it appears the entire system was gamed to bamboozle legislators to fool them into voting for tort reform, we're still voting yes. People are still out there voting yes. I urge you to stand against this injustice. And if you won't do that, doesn't it make you a little worried that they're busy launching an investigation in our state immediately to the south? That should make you worried. We've gone through this whole process about how insurance premiums are too high, and we have not asked one hard question of insurance companies. It's like we want to pretend they don't exist. There are lawsuits, and ergo, rates are high for businesses. That's just farcical. That is farcical if you're going to say we aren't even going to ask any questions of the freaking people setting the rates. What a joke. What a sop to insurance companies. That is ridiculous. And the people know it, by the way. They know it. And I would tell you, colleagues, that the shape this bill is in, it's real dangerous to be voting for this bill, given the scandal in Florida and what it does on premises liability. So I'm offering Amendment 1, which will allow other victims, children and the elderly, to have the same rights that right now Senate Bill 68 gives only to people who have been sex trafficked. So let's stand with kids, let's stand with the elderly. Why should they not have the same rights if they're abused, if they're raped, than people who have been sex trafficked? Why should they not have the same rights? Why is it not a big deal if someone got raped? If someone can answer me that question, maybe I'll understand. But I would tell you that it makes no sense, and it's just about limiting liability as much as possible, and having been forced, I guess, by all the talking we've done about sex trafficking for the last, at least, 10 years that I've been here, all the talk about sex trafficking clearly would have been shown to be just that talk, I guess, if we passed a bill that didn't allow them to sue. So, okay, fine. We'll carve them out. People who have been raped, abused, murdered, we'll say absolutely not to them. So I think real hard about what you're doing. It's embarrassing to do a handout to insurance companies without asking them one darn question. That's just embarrassing for anyone voting yes. So what I would suggest to you is that you vote yes on my motion to agree as amended, and that will allow the kids, children, an action that injures a person who at the time of the injury was less than 18 years old or was 65 years old and older. This will allow children and the elderly to have those same rights. And then, at least, we will have helped some other categories of victims that deserve our consideration. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the well.
Senators yielded. Secretary, read the substitution that you missed in the first reading.
Mr. President, the House offers the following substitute to Senate Bill 68, bill to entitle an act to amend Titles 9, 40, and 51 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated related to civil practice, motor vehicles, and torts, respectively, so as to provide for a substantive and comprehensive revision of provisions regarding civil practice and for other purposes. Mr. President, that completes the order.
Senator from the 53rd, are you wanting to speak to the amendment?
No, Mr. President, I want to speak to the main question.
All right, so we're going to take up Amendment 1 before we get to the main question, then you'll be welcome. All right, so the posture right now is Senator from the 7th. For what purpose do you rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Mr. President, isn't it true that we should table Senate Bill 68 until
Look
the
at
completion?
me, Senator. I can't look at me, Senator.
I said, Mr. President, isn't it true that we should table Senate Bill 68 until the completion of the Entrance Rate Investigation Committee recently created by the Speaker?
The duly noted there, Senator, but we're going to move forward with voting on the Senator from the 44th. So we're in the posture right now in voting. The Senator motion back there is in order, and so the motion is 68 as amended. We're going to vote on her amendment right here. Those in favor of her amendment will vote yea. Those opposed, nay. Secretary, unlock the machine. On the motion from the Senator from the 44th, the yeas are 22 and the nays are 32, and this motion has failed. Now we move to Senator from the 18th has moved that the Senate agree to the House substitute to Senate Bill 68. Is there objection? Excuse me. I'm sorry. You speak to your motion. I'm sorry first. Senator, I recognize the Senator from the 18th first. Speak to the motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon, colleagues. I appreciate your patience, and I know this is a bill that has received a lot of vetting, a lot of consideration. A lot of time has gone into the issues that we are talking about here today, and I want to begin by thanking Governor Kemp for leading on this issue and his work on something that is an incredibly important measure for our state. I want to thank our president, our Lieutenant Governor Jones, who has done a great job in being supportive of this measure all along the way. And I also want to thank Speaker Burns, who came out early on and said he recognized the necessity that we get something done in Georgia to help hardworking Georgians, to help us simply rebalance our civil justice system. I'm going to try to be brief, but I do want to go over and tell you about the substitute language that's before you today, which is very largely similar to the bill that passed out of this body just a few weeks ago with bipartisan support. I want to highlight the efforts of both the House and the Senate committees, the business community, and those that came and shared their testimony with the committees both on the Senate and the House side. The governor, Commissioner John King, and legislative leaders, many of whom are in this chamber today, have spent the past 2 years collecting data and participating in roundtable discussions with businesses, healthcare systems, and everyday Georgians to talk about what the problem was. You know, many of us had hoped that we might be working on some legislation, specific legislation, in 2024 last year. But our governor is a very, very thoughtful governor, and you'll remember that we passed HB 1114, which was the Tort data collection bill, so that we could find out more information that was not readily available from insurance companies that would inform what would ultimately go into the bill that you have before you. Through that entire process, along with the roundtable discussions with people around the state that the governor held, we learned a lot about what needs to be changed and what needs to be done. Not only that, but even after the Senate Bill 68 and Senate Bill 69 were filed, as the governor said in his State of the State address, he said that we were going to continue to have meaningful discussions, and we did. And you'll remember that after that initial filing of Senate Bill 68, there was a substantial revisions after working with various stakeholders, primarily the plaintiffs' bar and the GTLA, that produced the substitute that was presented to the Senate Judiciary Subcommittee. And then that was even further modified by what you voted on when Senate Bill left here from the Senate floor with regard to an amendment that substantially revised one of the portions involving phantom damages. After the bill passed out, as I've alluded to, all folks involved with this process, with the governor's office leading on this, have continued to meet and listen to the concerns. And then when it moved on to the House, it was exposed to over 15 hours of testimony and feedback from the public, committee members, and a broad spectrum of stakeholders. Yesterday, Senate Bill 68 passed the House as amended with bipartisan support, and I'm grateful to those leaders in the House that presented the bill, carried the bill, and also worked on their specially formed subcommittee from the Rules Committee to hear this measure. The substitute before you today incorporates input from the Georgia Trial Lawyers Association, victims advocates, and various plaintiffs' lawyers around the state. This substitute is a result of dozens and dozens and dozens of hours spent diligently working with the House and the Senate and the governor's office and stakeholders from all sides. As I said, Governor Kemp said in his State of the State that there would be room for the legislative process to play out, and that is exactly what has happened with input from all sides. But the governor also made it clear in the legislation that it should not and will not be a half measure. And I believe, friends, that this substitute in front of you today strikes that needed balance. The House added clarifying language to guard against any misapplication of the bill's provisions to protect both parties while ensuring open and fair access to the civil justice system. Let me walk you through those changes and briefly tell you what they are. You'll find in Section 1 of the bill, which was the provision dealing with anchoring, and it clarifies that the requirement to argue the monetary value of non-economic damages at the first opportunity for the closing argument means the first closing on the issue of damages, not the first at any point of the trial, but the first on damages. So what does this do? Well, it makes the interaction and interpretation of this section with Section 8 dealing with bifurcation clear that it prevents any misapplication. It also clarifies that the second closing argument that counsel can argue the monetary value of non-economic damages again as long as the argument was made during the first closing. This prevents either party from sandbagging the other by delaying and not talking about what the anticipated damages are or what's going to be requested. And finally, it clarifies that the advocates can still ask questions during voir dire about jurors' willingness to simply award damages. Section 2 involves motion to dismiss. And I know this stuff is thick, lawyerly bill stuff, but for those of you that, and I know many of you educated yourselves on the details of this, and I wanted you to understand the changes that the House made, and quite frankly, not only why I support them, but why they made the bill better. Section 2 highlights that if a court fails to rule on motions in a timely manner, then a writ of mandamus may be issued and be used to keep the courts accountable. This is important because it puts accountability where it should be, and that's on the court, to keep the case moving forward. There's only 3 more sections. The third is Section 3 involving voluntary dismissal, and it makes the clock for the voluntary dismissal start upon the filing of the answer regardless of whether a motion for summary judgment is filed. Well, why is that important? The catch, if you will, that was made by the House in looking at the language was good because it closed a potential loophole that defendants might take advantage of that would unduly and could have been used to game the system to prevent the plaintiffs in having that portion of discovery period that we agreed ought to be a part of that. Section 5, dealing with seatbelt evidence. This preserves the trial court's inherent discretion to determine whether and for what purpose evidence of seatbelt use should be admitted. Seatbelt use still must be relevant and non-prejudicial. Two basic standards for any evidence, and of course we know the judge is the gatekeeper, the referee, if you will, of what goes to the jury, and he or she as a judge still operate and do that function. Lastly, Section 6 involving premises. It increases the carve-out for sex trafficking victims, and it excludes any claim relating to a violation of 16.546, which is the criminal provision dealing with sex trafficking. So what does this mean? It means that Section 6 provides valuable protection, not only for businesses trying to do the right thing and needing to know and understand what that means, but also no protection for businesses who fail to act against human trafficking that occurs on their watch. It also places a clear limit on the application of Section 6 so that the other claims, such as those based on the failure to supervise employees and negligent hiring, which was really most of what we heard the senator from the 44th just complain about with her amendment, that somehow this bill as written was going to deny those claims. I would encourage you to do one thing. Read the bill. What she represented to you is not in this bill, not in word, not in ink, not in intent, and not in a desired policy. It ensures that Section 6, as interpreted, is intended to prevent businesses from liability, to protect businesses from liability due to factors outside of their control, while ensuring that businesses still face liability and face fault and face responsibility for what is under their control. The last section deals with bifurcation. Y'all remember we talked about that. That's where the parties can elect to have the trial split into simple two phases, same trial, same judge, same parties, same courthouse, just two phases for efficiency purposes. The changes that the House made allows the court to reject a demand for bifurcation in two types of cases. One, small cases in under $150,000. The court can say, no, this is too small of a case. We're going to not allow bifurcation. Second, and by the way, that's not some crazy thought because the same threshold is what North Carolina uses for their bifurcation statute. Second, where the plaintiff is a victim of sex offenses and the potential additional testimony would cause additional emotional trauma for that witness in testifying about such horrific acts that they have endured, regardless of what's at stake, the courts have the discretion to prioritize the emotional well-being of the victims of these horrific offenses so that they will not have to testify twice if the court so finds. These changes preserve bifurcation as a tool for both parties to ask for and use to give us those efficiencies while ensuring that the procedure does not clog up the court system or stop a victim of a sex crime from seeking justice through the civil justice system. You know, Georgians from all across the state have come to us asking for a more fair and balanced civil justice system. Through this process, we have all heard we've heard from hospitals, we've heard from the medical care, the communities that take care of us when we're sick. We've heard from the business owners that give our families jobs. We've heard from everyday Georgians who are struggling to make ends meet because of the litigation tax that's on our families now, and those that are scared when they pick up the letter opener, when they get their next notice from the insurance company of where the premiums have skyrocketed to. We need to do something about this. Senate Bill 68 proposes and does just that. I know we've voted down the amendment that was offered by the senator from the 44th. And I'm not going to take your time with the hour of the day to refute all that was said. But I will tell you that in my 11 years of being a legislator under this gold dome, this may be the most misrepresented piece of legislation that I've ever seen. You'll note what was not told to you during the presentation of the amendment was any specific reference to a provision of the bill that did what she said she feared would happen. And the reason is the bill doesn't do what was represented to you. And the reason that the language protecting victims of sex crimes was added was raised only as a question on the Senate side of could it possibly impair the bills that we passed 2 years ago to specifically give rights to those that have been sex trafficked and human trafficked. And so the language is added to make absolutely certain that those provisions of 51-156 were in no way impinged by this bill. But I'll give you one other thing to think about. You just heard the description of what this bill supposedly does. Does anybody in this chamber or anybody within the sound of my voice think that Governor Brian Kemp would propose a bill or a piece of legislation that would in any way decrease what the victims of sex trafficking and human trafficking in this state had available to them? If you have any thought like that, let me remind you of who he's married to. Our wonderful First Lady, Marty Kemp, who has for her entire tenure as our First Lady championed and done all she could for the victims of human trafficking and sex victims. In case you're wondering, how about Senate Bill 158 in 2019, the Anti-Human Trafficking Protection Response Act? How about Senate Bill 435 in 2020, the Survivors First Act? These are the things that Marty Kemp and Brian Kemp have championed for the women of this state. House Bill 823 in 2020, House Bill 911 in 2020, Senate Bill 33 that so many of us were proud to vote for in 2021, Senate Bill 34 in 2021, Senate Bill 461 in 22, Senate Bill 42 in 23, Senate Bill 370 in 24. And our First Lady continues to work for the victims of sex trafficking this year with Senate Bill 42, which is pending in our legislature for approval. So yeah, I do bristle a little bit. It's a bit offensive to characterize a piece of legislation like this in the way that this has been, knowing that this is Governor Kemp's priority for his legislative session this year. I'll leave you with one other comment. We had folks come and testify on the House side and on the Senate side. And it was done so in a way as if to suggest that if this bill passes, they'll have no causes of action to sue anybody for what they've endured. And that's not true, and I won't take your time with it, but on the House side, we went and found the complaint of someone who came and unfortunately had been misled, severely misled into believing that this bill would have restricted the kind of compensation she already got. And we went and demonstrated that because all of the other causes of actions in Georgia law remain untouched that folks have available to them. But I thought what was maybe somewhat rather telling is one of the members of the House Special Committee, a lawyer, who would have had us believe with the nature of her questions and her vote yesterday that this bill was just going to strip all the rights of Georgia for the victims of sex trafficking. But let me read to you from a complaint that was filed in the United States Federal Court for the Southern District of Georgia. Here's a copy of it. Lawyers have to sign pleadings with a requirement of candor to the court. Fortunately, Georgia has followed the federal government's lead in recognizing that actors other than actual traffickers and Johns were participating in, promoting, facilitating, and benefiting from the selling of sex and sex trafficking through the passage of SB 33. With the passing of SB 33, now codified as OCGA 51-156, Georgia now joins those states in providing trafficking victims the option to pursue civil suits. That's what's in the pleading. That's not the narrative that you're hearing, because that's not what they want, because they want this measure to not pass. I've been humbled by the outpouring of support simply for a balanced civil justice system. As the bill's sponsors, I've had the distinct privilege to meet so many Georgians across the state who are begging for relief. And through a process, I feel hopeful that something can and will be done today. All those folks came to see us, whether it was the day that we dropped the bill or came from across the state to the various times that the governor held the roundtable discussions, because they were asking you for a vital and urgent support that they sent us into this building to provide, and it's a way that we can give it to them by acting today. Colleagues, I ask your favorable consideration of this very thoughtful approach to simply balancing our civil justice system, and I appreciate your patience. I appreciate all the work that's gone into this from so many people from around the state, and certainly the legislators that have given this consideration. Mr. President, I'm happy to answer any questions, or I'll yield the will.
You have one question, Senator. Senator from the 26th.
Thank you, Mr. President. With Senator Yield.
Yes, sir, I do.
Senator, you talked about sex trafficking, but it's more in that bill than just sex trafficking. Am I right?
Yes, sir. There are 8 sections. One deals with premises liability, but only negligent security. So not all things dealing with premises liability. And then there are the other 7 that deal with the rules of the road, if you will, on how we lawyers and judges manage trials. And yes, sir.
So I'm not a lawyer. The only thing I can do is try to read it and make the best of it. But in your statement, you said y'all met with the Georgia Trial Lawyers Association. What suggestions were made to you all in the discussion of this bill that y'all accepted from the Georgia Trial Lawyers Association?
Senator, that numerous suggestions that came. For example, the initial bill that was filed, there was an objection to one of the sections that was completely removed. The issue on the motion to dismiss timing, which the initial proposal followed and mirrored the federal rules of civil procedure, which meant that the plaintiff had up until the time the defendant files an answer to dismiss their action. They asked for some time to do some limited discovery on to make sure that the jurisdictional and venue and proper party issues were properly addressed, and asked for time. So the time date was moved back from the timing of the answer to the 60-day period that was suggested. The trial lawyers also did not like the initial approach to phantom damages, which is truth in medical billing. And what we see in this proposal that came out of the Senate and was left unchanged by the House, because it's a very good compromise, is not only does the jury see the rack rate, which was being the policy behind the initial Senate bill, was that they would only see the actual amount needed for reimbursement. But we wound up with a landing spot where both numbers go to the jury. That was at the specific request of the trial lawyers and those that engage mostly in plaintiff's work. I can go on and on, Senator. There were a lot of changes, and as I said in my earlier comments, every step along the way, from the initial bill that was changed to the sub, that was then changed by the amendment in this body, that was then sent to the House, that was modified by the 7 or 8 different sections that they changed, would be fairly characterized as all those changes were moving in the direction as requested by the plaintiff's bar.
Senator, yield further.
Yes, sir.
Senator, we, and I don't know where you saw it, we had a copy of the Speaker of the House in Florida talking about insurance companies, and that the main one says they lost this, but their subsidiaries made billions of dollars. So where are we when it comes to insurance companies? Because most of the litigations is dealing with insurance companies and what they pay out. Now, isn't it true if you have a claim or you call in to the insurance company, that's what they call an inter-office memo, and they decide what they're going to pay on that particular claim, whether it's high or low, but they're not going but so much. When they do that, and say they set aside $100,000 and they only pay out 50, do they in turn tell the insurance department on their claim sheet, well, we paid out 50,000, but they had 100,000 set aside, so the other 50,000 went back to the insurance company? Or do they report to the insurance company that was a $100,000 claim?
Senator, if I understand your question, you're asking about the retention policies and how that data is communicated to the Office of Insurance Commissioner. I really don't know the answer to your question. I would tell you I doubt that insurance companies, but I don't know this, report what their retention levels are on a claim-by-claim basis. I do know and understand that the Office of Insurance Commissioner does evaluate their overall retention policies because they want to make our insurance commissioners, I'm sure other insurance commissioners do as well, they want to make sure that the retention amounts that the carriers have are capable of sustaining the payment that may ultimately be required. Okay. Thank you, Mr. President, and I appreciate everybody's time. Urge your support for this bill, and thank you for your patience.
Bringing out a senator from the 53rd.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise today in opposition of Senate Bill 68, but my Democratic colleagues pointed to premises liability. That's what I think is the only good part of Senate Bill 68. You see, our Georgia Constitution, it says we have rights to life, liberty, and property. It didn't say life, liberty, and happiness. It says life, liberty, and property. Premises liability, that's the good part of the bill because it's protecting that property. But I come here today to give the other Republican side against my former caucus members because everything else in this piece of legislation is nothing more than an insurance company bailout. There's no guarantees whatsoever that insurance companies are going to lower their rates. I think any good businessman in the insurance company, now that they've got this bailout, what are they going to do? They're going to pocket that money, not return it back to their customers. As Donald Trump's floor leader, I'd like to read to you a truth from President Donald Trump. Now, this is related to Florida, but you can just take, when I say Florida, just replace that with Georgia. And when I say Ron, you can replace that with Governor Kemp. I won't read the whole thing, but it says, Ron DeSanctimonious is delivering the biggest insurance company bailout to globalist insurance companies in history. He also crushed Florida homeowners as their houses were destroyed in the hurricane. They're getting pennies on the dollar. His insurance commissioner does nothing while Floridians' lives are ruined. This is the worst insurance scam in the entire country. So in my opinion, Senate Bill 68 is the second worst. Why is it the second worst? Because we got that premises liability part in there. You see, we've got these 10 amendments in our Constitution that protect us from the government. Senate Bill 68 infringes upon the 7th Amendment, the right to go seek justice. This is quintessential AstroTurf movement, not a grassroots movement as it's been portrayed. When it passed over in the House, the gallery was full of lobbyists. Those lobbyists didn't walk up that mezzanine and go up there if they weren't getting paid to be there. It wasn't full of regular everyday Georgians. When I talk to the people in the Northwest, they're worried about the carpet mills. They're worried about the water that's ending up in the streams. And they want to make sure they've got a good way to go sue and bring justice to them and their families. Mr. President, I'm going to oppose Senate Bill 68 today, and I thank you for the time at the well.
Thank you, Senator. Okay. The pro tem has moved that the Senate agree to the House substitute on SB 68. All those in favor of his motion will vote yea. All those opposed, nay. Secretary unlock the machine. On the motion to agree, the yeas are 34 and the nays are 21, and this motion has prevailed. Recognize Senator from the 52nd.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would move that the Senate agree to the House substitute to Senate Bill 77 as amended by Amendment Number 2.
Secretary, read the caption.
Senate Bill 77 by Senator Huffstetler of the 52nd and others. Bills between town and act to provide a homestead exemption from City of Cartersville Independent School District ad valorem taxes for educational purposes in amount equal to and for other purposes. Mr. President, the House offers the following substitutes to Senate Bill 77. A bill to be entitled and act to provide a homestead exemption from City of Cartersville Independent School District ad valorem taxes for educational purposes and for other purposes. Mr. President, Senator Huffstetler, 52nd, offers the following Amendment Number 2 to amend Senate Bill 77 by replacing Bartow County Tax Commissioner with governing authority of the City of Cartersville on lines 38, 89, 92, and 97 by replacing Tax Commissioner Bartow County with governing authority of the City of Cartersville on lines 62 to 63 and 77 and for other purposes. Mr. President, that completes the order.
Senator, I'd like to speak to you, Bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. I apologize for a local bill taking up time. It has nothing to do with Mulberry, but we had a House substitute, and which we were going to agree to, but then they had some errors in it where they had put Bartow County in there instead of the City of Cartersville like it should have been. So we originally had an amendment, but then I realized that wasn't complete enough, so I was withdrawing Amendment Number 1 and was replacing it with Amendment Number 2. And if there are no questions, I would urge your favorable consideration of agreeing to the House substitute as amended by my Amendment Number 2.
Senator from the 41st. What purpose do you rise?
Senator, do you yield?
I yield.
Senator, just so we understand what's happening, is Amendment 2 your amendment, or is that the House's amendment?
That's my amendment to what they had done, because they had some errors in there that it should have said the city of Cartersville and it was saying Bartow County. So we corrected that in numerous places.
Senator, do you further yield?
I yield.
Is that amendment in our notebook, or is
It's
it
in your,
coming
it's
on
in
our
your
desk?
book. It's in the back of your book there, correct.
All right, thank you, Senator. We appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
You have no further questions, Senator.
All right. Thank you. I urge your favorable consideration.
Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the measure? Hearing none. So the posture win is on Senate Bill 77. The senator has made the motion that we agree to the substitute as amended, amendment number 2. All those who agree with the author's motion, we vote yea. All opposed, nay. Secretary, unlock the machine. On the motion to agree, the yeas are 55, the nays are 0, and this amendment has prevailed. Recognize the senator from the 52nd.
Thank you, Mr. President. One more. I move that the Senate agree to the House substitute to Senate Bill 83.
Just read the caption.
Senate Bill 83 by Senator Hustetler of the 52nd and others, bills being entitled and act to provide a homestead exemption from Bartow County School District ad valorem taxes for educational purposes, an amount equal to the amount by which the current year assessed value of a homestead exceeds the adjusted base year assessed value of such homestead, and for other purposes. Mr. President, the House offers the following substitutes to Senate Bill 83, bill to be entitled and act to provide a homestead exemption from Bartow County School District ad valorem taxes for educational purposes, an amount equal to the amount by which the current year assessed value of the homestead, and for other purposes. Mr. President, that completes the order.
Senator from the 52nd.
Thank you, Mr. President. I should have mentioned on the last as well as this one that the senator from the 37th is also part of Bartow County and has been part of this process as well. The House had amended a local bill. We had agreed to the amendment, and so it comes off the consent calendar, and I need you to agree to that. It is in the back of the book. It's a homestead exemption for Bartow County. No questions. I'll yield to Will.
All those in favor of the motion to agree on Senate Bill 83 will vote yes. All opposed, nay. Secretary, unlock the machine. All the motion to agree, the yeas are 54, the nays are 0, and this motion has prevailed. Recognize the majority leader.
Mr. President, I move that the Senate stand adjourned pursuant to SR 6 until 10 a.m. on Tuesday, March 25th.
Secretary, read the announcement.
Mr. President, the Science and Technology Committee will meet upon adjournment in room 310 in the CLOB, and the Rules Committee will meet upon adjournment at 4:50 in the Capitol. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Any other announcements? Senator, the Majority Leader has moved that the Senate stand adjourned until 10 a.m. Monday. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, no. Ayes clear to have it. We're adjourned.